Mel, who's doing a stream again. So happy. Oh my God, what is this? So happy 2021, and welcome to my first Twitch stream of the year. Yay! So yeah. So just so you know, to start the year in a high fashion, new year, new me, I sliced a part of my thumb away. So I can't really draw well until it kind of grows back. But it's okay because you don't need to be an expert at drawing to do everything in Harmony. So I thought that today I'd show you how to handle your background and your 3D space and your 3D models and your Z space in general. So that's what we're gonna do today because it's fun. So yeah, as the chat says, if you have any questions or any things you want to share about the subject we're talking about, feel free to do so in the chat, and we'll answer it. If I don't answer, um, um, it'll come. So just be patient. So yeah, my name is Mel, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. So here's what I have in store for you today. And if we don't have time to do everything, it's okay. I'll just come back another day and we can talk about it. So we're going to talk about the Z space in general. So this includes multiplane and 3D integration for like reference and stuff. I'm not going to talk about 3D rendering because that's another story, but if it's something that interests you, tell us in the chat and we're going to do something about it. So yeah, 3D background like that you can set in Z space. Also going to talk about actual 3D assets that you can use to draw on. So I will use my amazing skills of drawing without a thumb to show you that you can actually have, for example, a dog sitting on this bench. Whoop. That's my dog. Yay. On top of a 3D model. And the fun thing is that even if it's a 3D model, it's not just an image. I'll be able to kind of move it around and do some cool inception stuff. And to draw on top of it. And even if you want to animate one part of the model, you can also do that. So pretty flexible and pretty fun. Pretty fun. And hello from France. Yay! Hello, Julius from France. That's fun. Yay. Yeah, so that's what we're gonna do today. So let's dive in. Before I go with the whole 3D shenanigans here, I'm gonna start with something more simple. But the good thing is that even though it's simple, because it's mostly 2D images, it's kind of the same concept as the 3D ones. So Toon Boom Animation has become Blender. Well, I don't know who's become who, but it's been a while since you can use 3D models in Harmony. So I'm happy that this is new information to some of you, because then you'll be able to learn and grow better and stuff. So that's cool. All right, so I have this background that I didn't draw or paint. Just saying, because I can't do backgrounds to save my life. And that background is separated into many pieces, as you can see here. So it's like a kind of a rig, but it's a background. But that's another way you can do backgrounds. You can have them separated in many little pieces. Like that. And what I did is I imported that background, I gave it peg, and what I'll be able to do with you in a moment is separate it into different depth in my scene. So I'm just going to do it quick to show you the final result. And after that, we're going to do it together and have fun. You see how much time it takes? It's really quick. And that's what we're going to be able to do after. So instead of having to fake this multiplane or parallax effect, you can really just set your backgrounds in space. And then once you have a camera, where are you? There you go. Once you have a camera and you put a peg on it and you kind of go forward with that camera, you'll be able to see a very cool 3D effect. Whoa, this is so immersive. Whoa. Yeah, so you can zoom in and it's very intuitive. And one thing you can even do is set your peg to 3D and be able to do something like this. Whoa. To really look as if your background was 3D, but we're not having 3D yet. It's just images. But we can still get a lot out of these images. So the reason why I'm starting with 2D is that once you do a project, you have to ask yourself, do I really need full 3D in that scene or in that project? Because, even in popular 3D movies, thinking like How to Train Your Dragon or all these very popular movies, if you watch the making of, a lot of the sets are actually not 3D. They'll have matte painting in English, which would be like highly rendered version of this, and they just move this 2D image around and it looks 3D at a fraction of the cost. So always ask yourself, do I really need 3D? Because it takes more people to work it, or can I just do it in 2D first? So that's something you can do. And the reason why it looks kind of 3D when I zoom in is because it actually is. So if I go to my perspective view and I move around, oops, I move around, you see that it's actually, my background is in 3D. Whoa! So Harmony is a 2D software, but it has a 3D universe inside it, like a 3D plane, which is why you can work with 3D models. Where is my 3D model? There it is. Come on. So that's why you're able to work into 3D models. And when you draw, you can have these drawings that are 2D. So that's why I'm able to draw. It's because my 2D drawing will be on a plane that will be on top of my 3D one. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna remove everything and we're gonna start from scratch. Goodbye, background. Yay. All right, so first, I don't need my camera either. So I'm gonna just import a background because even just for background import, there's a lot of things to say. So File, Import, and I'm gonna go get a background. Yeah, okay, so I have my PSD. If I open it in Photoshop, you'll see that all the layers are actually layers in Photoshop. But it doesn't have to be Photoshop. It can be most painting software. As long as you can save it as a PSD file, you can open it into multiple files like that. So, oops. I meant to open it in Harmony, not in Photoshop. No. Well, whatever. At least we have it. So you see, so in Photoshop, that's what my background looks like. So there's many layers. And if I put some blending modes on these layers, such as multiplane, overlay, and stuff, these would also follow, which is something I'm going to show you later as well. So, I know that my layers are separated, so I'll be able to import it just like that into Harmony. So instead of exporting all these images as one, you can just import it as a whole file. Go open. And then you just go here. So for the layers, do I want just one layer or do I want multiple layers? Well, I want multiple layers because I want it to be separated into multiple layers. I will keep it as original bitmap because what this does is that I'll be able to import my blending node if I have some. Blending mode, I mean, if I have some. And also, if I save my file, my PSD, if I save it and then I close Harmony, I open it again, it's going to go and get the newly updated PSD. So you don't need to re-import, you just need to edit and save, which is kind of cool. So usually for full-blown background, we use the original bitmap. If it was a prop that you were importing, such as like a PNG prop that a character is going to interact with and move, It's better to use, it's sometimes better to do it as in Toon Boom bitmap drawing. This is because you have some more power with it, with like the nodes and the peg and the tools. But, you know, typically for backgrounds and multiplanes, we're going to do it as original bitmap. And I mean, for the rest, it depends on your file, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. I'll press OK, and then I'll get another window because I'm importing a file with multiple layers. So what do I want to do with that? Do I want to just import it as one layer and flatten all my files or stuff? So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. I'll just, for backgrounds, usually you can import individual layers. Because if you do groups as layer, if you have multiple layers in a group, instead of importing many layers, it's going to take all the Photoshop layers and transform them as frames. So if you had a character with a reference and had many mouths inside the same layers, then you could import that kind of character as groups. So then your group would contain multiple frames. But if it's a background, use it as individual layers. I'll press OK, and then I'll get my background. Import it in many different layers. All right, and then I will just put them side by side like this because I prefer them to be side by side. And you have your background, but that's not over because remember, if you want to move an image in Harmony, you need to put a peg on it. You're not supposed to animate a image straight. So I know that in my preferences, I cannot put keyframes on my drawings, but in case that you don't have that or you're not sure, when you import a background or anything, always make sure that you select these drawings and you go to the set properties on many layers and that you actually turn the animate using animation tool at off so that you don't put keyframes on your backgrounds. Because the last thing that you want is to put a keyframe on your background image and on the peg, and that both of them fight and nobody has fun. So I'll press OK like that. And then since they're already selected, you just have to press on Ctrl-Shift-P to get all your pegs. And since they're already selected again, you can press on Ctrl-P to unite them. So that's usually what I do for backgrounds. I select what I want. I go with like Ctrl-Shift-P and Ctrl-P. That's like my recipe to success. And then everything has its own little peg and you'll be able to work magic with it. Yay! All right, so the reason why we have a peg here is not so much to animate it, because you'll never animate a background moving like that, or rarely. The reason why we like to have a peg is that then in your timeline you can just collapse it and it looks neat and organized. Because if I didn't have it, it would take so much room in my timeline all the time to have my background showing up there. So that's why we prefer to have a peg on top of it, just so that it's easier to organize in your timeline and in your node view. It's like a full circle. You have your top peg and your bottom composite, and everyone is happy. Note that my composite is set to bitmap. For a multiplane, it's important to set it to pass through. Because otherwise, if your composite is set to bitmap, it will only register the Z depth of the leftmost port. So if you try to have a character in sandwich between two layers, it's not going to work. If we have sometimes, I'm going to go over that later, but just for now, just know that for multiplane, you have to get a pass-through composite. All right. Don't forget, if you have some questions, feel free to ask them. Yay! All right, and now we need to actually create our multiplane, because if I go to my perspective, I don't see anything in depth. It's just one image. I need to bring things forward and backward, right? So to do that, that's when the top or side view comes in. Just to show you how it's done, I'm going to have my perspective and my camera showing up at the same time, but it's really not necessary once you get used to it. It's really just for education purposes. So in my camera view, I'm going to show you the background, and in my perspective view, I'm going to put it into like 45-degree angle, just so that you see what's going on with that. And then I like to have my node view showing as well, so that I can interact with my background more easily. And then I'm gonna go get my last view, and it's the top view. You can also get the side view, but I don't know why. I just like the top view better. I like to see my things from the top rather than from the side, but you know, they're the same. So top view, you can have your backgrounds here on the side. And one thing that is really important is that in the top view, you really see the 0 axis. So these lines are like the 0, 0 of your universe. If you create a new layer, this is where it's going to be. So this is why, and this is really, really important, if you work in a studio or if you want to do that for yourself, like Multiplane and stuff, always remember that when where your characters are interacting, always keep them at this 0 space. Because otherwise, if your floor is too much near the camera and you want to create another layer, then you'll have to also move that new layer. And it's a bit annoying. So usually we call that line ground 0. And the plane where your character are going to act, like this floor, needs to stay at ground 0. You don't push it forward or backward. You leave it there. And actually in that scene, I see that my floor and this should kind of stay at the same Z depth. So for these two things, I will actually, like Lindsay says, daisy chain them, and I'll unite them under the same peg, just so that when I move this, both my planes move. Like maybe it was separated so that you can put an effect on the pavement, but not the ground. But in terms of depth, they're at the same place. So I'm going to unite them under the same peg. There you go. And now I'm ready to do my multiplane. So to do the multiplane, of course, you have some pegs on your background. And I'm going to take these pegs and I'm going to bring them forward if they're in front of my ground. And I'm going to bring them backward if they're behind my ground. Okay? And when I say in front and behind, I mean in the top view, you see here, this is your camera. And the triangle is what your camera sees. So if I take my background and I push it to the side, it's not in my triangle, so I don't see it. It needs to be inside the triangle to see it. Okay? And now this is my camera. So everything that is in this part of the triangle is in front. Everything that is in the wider part is behind. All right? So, hey, Animatunings. Hello. Right, so now if I want to do my multiplane, I'll just take my OL, my overlay layer. And the first reflex that people would have is to take the layer and bring it forward, right? Because it needs to be in front. So they would take maybe their transform tool or their translate tool and push it forward. But what this does is it will make your layer actually bigger because it is getting near the camera, which is not optimal because then you lose the beautiful composition you had. So if you're in other compositing software, you need to kind of bring them forward, but you also need to like scale them down. And it's a bit annoying to do so because it's like math that you have to do. Like you have to kind of divide something by something else. And I'm not good at math, okay? I draw. So instead of having the hassle of like making it bigger or smaller and then changing where it is, Harmony has a tool made for that, and it's called the maintain size tool. And if you go here, I see the maintain size tool up there, and it says keeps visual scales in camera view as you move elements in z-axis inside or top views. Like it's a tool that was basically meant to make your life easier. So if I click on this and I bring my piece forward and backward, you see it doesn't budge inside my camera view. But we can clearly see it moving into the 3D space. Whoa, it's getting to be so small. Look at it being so small. So if it's small, it's because it's very near the camera. And Harmony is making the calculations for you, like the math I was talking about. It's going to shrink your background element as it comes closer to the camera. And okay, I won't bring it too close because that's crazy. Just like that should be enough. And then just to show you, I'm going to do the same, but with my background card. So I'm going to take my background element here, and I will push it backward. And you see it's going to start to get bigger and bigger as I bring it backward, but it's not getting bigger inside my camera view. It's really just Harmony doing the calculations for you. Where is it now? It's there. So big and small, big and small. All right, so now that I have my further back in my very close OLs, I'm just going to do the rest of my background, okay? So I'm actually going to start over with these. And oh, and by the way, I'm on my first frame, so it's kind of important to do that on your first frame. Yeah, people, you seem to like that feature, and I've worked into compositing in other softwares in different shows, and I know that this was a very annoying process, having to like fake the 3D depth of your background. So having it be automatic like that and actually logical because it is 3D and not having to scale and move is so fun. It makes compositing a whole lot easier for that part of the job. So don't be afraid to try it. It's really, really fun. And okay, so I'm going to reset it all just to show you how fast it can be. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one by one of these pegs, and I'm just going to push them and pull them into my Z space while always keeping my main grounded. Like I'm not bringing this backward or forward. And you know, the fun thing is that you can also, if I take this part, you can bring it backward or forward, but like you see, it doesn't grow big or small. So fun. Okay, I'm going to start with my OL. I'm going to bring it forward. This one, I'll also bring it forward, but less so than the other, so that I have a cool depth in this. Actually, I think this one is more near than this one, so I'll do the opposite. So I'm going to bring this one close and this one a bit further. Then my main ground is not moving. My mountains, I need to push them a little bit behind. They're disappearing, but it's fine. It's just because they're now behind the castle, but it's okay. I'm going to take the castle, I'm going to bring it backward, take my clouds, bring them back, and then take my layer and bring it back as well. Usually people will start with the back and then go forward so that they don't have things hiding things, but that's not how my brain works, and that's life. So so then you have your little multiplane, and it took like 5 seconds to do, and it's so cute. After that, to create a camera movement, it's as easy as creating yourself a camera, giving it a peg. For camera motion, I tend to prefer to have 3D path peg rather than separate, just because it's easier to do a path. If you have a question on the path, we have documentations on it and stuff, so you can check that out later, because today is not the subject. But 3D paths are great because it allows you to navigate your trajectory very easily. So I'm going to click on my camera peg, or click on my camera to show it to you, my camera peg to show how to move it in my timeline. Not in my timeline, in my camera view. And by the way, in my camera view, I activated my camera mask. It's that button that is in the bottom left to move your background like that, to have your screen get dark if you want to see just what your camera sees. Okay. And then to have your camera movements, you just have to take your camera peg, take your transform tool, and if you shrink the rectangle, you will zoom in. And if you make it wider, you're going to zoom out. Of course, you can also pivot it if you want to do some crazy cool things, but that's not what I'm going to do right now. And let's say that I want to zoom in and look at this castle ground here. That's kind of cool. Oh crap, I was on my first layer. I need to be on a different frame. So on my first frame, I'll have my basic movement, and I'll put a keyframe there. And I'm gonna go to like frame 40, and now I'm gonna make my zoom in to my beautiful thing. And don't go too far because you're gonna know that you cheated. So always keep in mind that you don't want to see, you only want to see your background, not the gray area of Harmony, because that's weird. You could always fix it by having your green background be a bit bigger, but you know, I will keep within my limits because that's what the background was designed for. Okay, so let's say that this is my zoom in. Amazing. Oh no, there's a tangent. No tangents. No, it's full of tangents. I hate tangents. Okay, that's perfect. And now I'll just activate the tween and I'll have a beautiful camera move. Whoa. And yeah, you can of course use the drop down menu here to give it a bit more of a better timing. But yeah, so that's the basic of the multiplane. Did you learn something new today? I hope so. And it's not even over because there's more things you can do with that as well. Because now I'm just using 2D pegs. So I'm moving things in Z space. But you can also use a 3D peg. So that's what I'm going to use with my camera here. I'll focus on what my camera sees. I'm going to go here, go to my peg, enable 3D. And you see, it's going to change how my peg looks. So instead, in a 2D peg, you can just edit, the square thingy. But in a 3D peg, you have this cool 3D controller. And it looks like a cross that is red and green, but it's actually it's actually a 3D circle, allowing you to move around your scene like that. Okay, so if I zoom in, you can even have your camera kind of plunge forward or backward or forward like that. So it's even more immersive. So I'm going to redo the movement with my 3D peg now. So I'm going to start a little bit as a down shot. That's how it's called. I'm losing my English. And then on frame 30, I will zoom in. And I'm going to plunge forward a little bit. And you'll see, of course, if you cheated too much, it shows that you're using 2D assets. But you can kind of move around and explore your background like that. And that's really great to move within your space. Kind of gives you that cool adventure time kind of intro motion. Yeah, that seems cool. Whoa, this is so 3D, wow. And yeah, so how do you like that, people? Oh, and let's say that I wanted to have something like a lizard drawn on that piece. That's where the pegs come in, because people, sometimes I walk around and I talk with artists and they're like, using peg is stupid. I don't want to put a peg. I just want to move my background directly because putting a peg is 0.5 seconds, 0.1 second, and it's too long. But it's really useful to put a peg because then if I'm making a new drawing layer and I call that the lizard with the U, I can just give it a composite like that. And that's my OL layer. If I attach that layer to this one, you can even give it its own peg, by the way, in case you want it to go behind and in front of that. And if I want to draw a lizard, or actually I'm going to draw a stick bug because stick bug are my new passion. And if that's my stick bug, it can show up on top of my background, and it's gonna stay there for my whole scene. Yeah, I'm organized, so I'm renaming my layers. Yeah, so now if I have my camera movement, my stick bug will stay there as well. And if you want to animate the stick bug, you can do so. I'm gonna give it a very quality animation. Just brace yourself. Yeah, that's a party bug. Okay, I love it. So that's my beautiful animation. I'll just copy and paste it throughout all my scene. Paste cycle forever. There you go. And now my bug will be moving in my scene. What is this? So that's a fun thing. Oh no, it's sticking around. And the fun thing is that now, since I have one bug animation and I want to have it elsewhere in my background, you just have to figure out which peg you need. So if I want my bug to also be on that tree, I can just use a copy or an apply peg transformation of that bug and also place it within my new background. So I'm going to give it a peg, attach it here, so that then I can take my bug and I'm going to, oh, that's not the right pivot point. There you go. And I'm going to put it on the tree. Have a great old time. No, not the tree. I'm going to put that on the castle. That's way cooler. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And after that, we're going to jump to 3D. So that's the part, that's the time to get a glass of water or a snack if you want, because I'm just doing 3D, just doing stick bug madness at the moment. So he's having a great old time on that castle. And yeah, so now if I make my camera movement, my character will still be on there. There we go. Yay! And yes, that was part one of that amazing Twitch stream. I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what goes in my brain sometimes. And oh, I forgot one thing. I keep forgetting things that are cool. So now it's attached to your background, but you can also attach things to your camera. So if you wanted to have kind of a cool eagle or flying stick bug flying around your scene, you could also have a layer attached to your camera. Just make sure that it shows up in your node view. Attached to your camera. And now if this was my eagle, because if I don't attach it to my camera, I'm going to draw the most beautiful eagle. I'm getting great at drawing without a thumb. Without a thumb. So that's my beautiful bird. If I wanted to fly across my scene, if I don't attach it to my camera, oops. Yeah, if I don't attach it to my camera, when my camera is going to move in my scene, it's going to outfly the bird, and it looks weird. But if you attach it to your camera, it's going to follow your camera. Whoa. But now the problem is that if it's attached to my camera, it's standing at ground zero, so it's going to go inside my background. So if you do that, just make sure to give it a peg. And you go on your first frame, and you're going to maintain size that peg as close as you can to your camera so that it doesn't break with your camera. So I'm gonna put a peg, and I'm gonna maintain size that peg close to my camera, and then I'm gonna maybe scale it up a little bit, because you need to do that before you do your camera move. Okay, I'm just doing things backward, but then you see it's gonna stay close to your camera so that you can have a 2D layer moving into your 3D space. And then you consider that as a flat layer, so you can animate your bird doing whatever you want. It's just that I can't animate really well, but like if you wanted to flap its wing or something, just have to animate it, just like if there was no 3D backgrounds under it, and etc. So, yay! Okay, so I think that's enough nonsense. We're gonna go to do some 3D movement. Yay! And the part I just showed you about attaching something to your camera and maintain sizing it close to your camera, this is important when you do 3D work. All right, so let's jump to 3D. I'm saving this scene because it's hilarious. I'm gonna make a GIF out of that stick bug party. So just one last time. I think I'm gonna put like 10 of them. I thought it would be fun. All right, so I'm gonna get rid of this. Well, I'll just unconnect it because I want to keep it for later. Save. Okay. Let's talk about 3D, because a lot of things I hear when artists want to use 3D is that sometimes it's a bit hard because 3D is not something they're comfortable with. And it's totally understandable. So I'm going to try to make it a bit easier for all of you to do. So I have this thing that I already imported just to show you quickly. Where is it? Oh, right, I deleted it. I'm sorry. So I'm going to start over. It's fine. I'm going to go to my file, get a 3D model. As easy as file, import 3D model. If you don't know what you can and can't import, we have a documentation about it that you can check out. So I'm just going to go get that little card here. And you have the choice to convert it to 2D, but I'm going to show you that later, not now. It's coming. It's coming. Yeah, so I have my beautiful 3D card. If you want to move it, of course, I always, like I said before, put a peg on it. Don't move the model directly. Put a peg on it. And since it's a 3D object, always go to your layer properties and enable your 3D peg so that you can actually move your piece in 3D. Whoa. But you see, it imported your model at ground zero. So if you leave it there, you can like scale it. But if it stays there and you try to draw, and of course, when you draw, your drawing is going to go through your model. Yeah, because your drawing is here. So it's cutting your model. So if I take my model and I push it back, oops, push it back, it's going to be behind my drawing, and now it's going to be in front. So that's one thing that can be confusing, because then you can't really maintain size a background because it's not an image. It does something weird. So typically when we use 3D as reference, we're not going to maintain size the background. We're going to maintain size the drawing. So my background, you can kind of try and be careful and like prepare and always leave it behind the ground zero if you want, and then you can like move it around and stuff without problem. But usually when I work with 3D reference, I don't really care that much about this ground zero thing. And because when you use 3D as reference, ultimately you're gonna get rid of the reference, so it's not that much of a problem. But that's it. You have two choices. So either you keep your 3D model always behind this part, and then you just do your business however you want, or you can have your drawing. And I'm gonna take my file. Gonna make a little happy face. And I'm gonna take my file, and what I'm gonna do is put a peg on it, and I'll maintain size that layer very close to what my camera sees. So then even if my background is in front of the ground zero thingy, my drawing is always in front because I maintain sized it near what my camera sees. And since it's maintain sized, when I'm done tracing my animation, like if I wanted to trace that 3D background thing, oh my god, there's so many details. That's why we use 3D ref. Okay, so if I'm done tracing it, if I remove the peg, my drawing doesn't change size, so that I can have my drawing standing at the 0 plane, because since it's maintained sized, it doesn't change the size of it like that. So then I can use the maintain size when I want to trace, and then I just remove it when I'm done and I want to actually start my animation. So that's usually what I do for 3D models like that, if I want to trace them. This way you can have like your 3D model imported in your scene. And if you want to animate them, maybe not the card. I'm going to animate something else because the card is not really supposed to move. Oh, but before I do that, I just want to show you. No, actually, I'm going to do the movement first. I'm going to go get my little sword thing. Yeah, let's say you do a show about like pirates and they have swords, and the swords, they need to move around. Sometimes it's hard to know how a sword looks in different angles. So you can manipulate your sword like that and try to find a good angle, and then you can trace it, right? And if you want to animate it, it's as easy as just putting a keyframe. Then you're moving your peg just like you would with any cutout asset. And yeah, so that will be my beautiful animation. Woo! I did this once for kind of an intro sequence that was kind of very, very, kind of like a James Bond movie when they have like esoteric little shapes moving around and you can kind of trace it and it looks cool. I did that for a school project. We had to like rotoscope something. That was kind of cool. So we could draw over. But like I shown before, if you have a drawing layer and you try to draw on top of it, and sometimes it's going to be over, sometimes it's going to be under, and it's a bit annoying. So usually I do my 3D animation here, but I just maintain size my drawing layer as close as I can from my camera, and then just draw it over my sword. Time is running out, so I'm going very quick, but you get the picture. So so then, yeah, you would have your thing following, and it's really fun to do because it's easy. And then when I'm done, I'll just get rid of my, like, unconnect my 3D, deactivate my peg, and now my animation is standing on the 0, and you have it there. So super great. It's cool for cars, it's cool for swords, for anything that is going in 3D that you want to trace over to get some references. Okay, So I hope it's clear. And now just to show you another thing about 3D, because I used to be a 3D animator, so I'm perfectly at ease animating in 3D, okay? Because I studied 2D animation on paper, then I graduated and went to study 3D, and I worked in 3D for like a year, 2 years, I think. And then I went back to 2D because that's what I love most, but I'm still very at ease in 3D animation, so 3D is easy. But it's not the case for everyone, and that's understandable because it takes a lot of time to know it. So if 3D is not your thing, you can also import something as a 2D image. So I'm going to go get my 3D models, and I'm going to go get we have a cool Tokyo model. Tokyo model, where is it? There you go. Tokyo street card. That should do it. That's a very huge model though. And I'm going to convert it to 2D. So this is exactly like if you were opening your model in like Google SketchUp or another 3D software, and Maya or something, and you would take a screen cap and copy paste it in the software. So then you could have your landscape or your model, and it gives you this very, very clean and easy interface that you can like zoom in and out. You can move about. That's a very heavy model. I should have taken something else. And you can kind of move. Oh yeah, you can move around your model like that. And since you can use the numbers, it's a lot easier to manage than moving it in your scene. And then you have this. Once you're satisfied with the angle, you can render it. Oh, you can even change the focal. This is very important for, especially for like background and stuff, to be able to change the focal to fit maybe a camera angle that you had. Then you can render it to your scene. And what it's going to give you is an image. So then you don't have to worry about the depth of your scene. You can't animate your camera going through it in 3D, but it's like a very, it gives you like a PNG, it gives you like a flat image. So if I go to my perspective, where are you? Perspective, there you are. It's really just an image. So then it's easier to just trace over it with another drawing, because if the drawing is in front of your 3D background, then it's gonna show on the front. So you can have like if you want Godzilla to appear and walk on the ground. I want to draw, but I can't. If that's his big lizard leg and he walks in the scene, it's way easier. And if you're not satisfied, or if your supervisor comes, he's like, I'm not sure about this angle, you can be like, yeah, no biggie. I'm just going to right click on my background, update my model position. And then it's going to take a while because it's a big model. I should have taken something else. And you'll be able to change the angle of your thing. Like that. Then I can change the angle. And maybe get it to look a bit more up because it's way more dramatic. And then you render it to your scene. And then your angle changed. Of course, you don't do that once your animation is over. You do that before animating, right? Do it when you do your key poses or your rough. Not your rough, like your layout. But then it's easy for you to just choose the angle that you want. Yay! The last thing I want to say about, and by the way, if you mix that with our guide tools, then you can even use this as a base and just start to draw. And then just start to draw your background on top by using our perspective guides. You can kind of make them match your scene and just start to draw. So that's cool. But I'm not a background person, so I'm not going to waste your time today. But if you're a background person, feel free to mix and match the guides and the thing. It's a bit more useful in Storyboard Pro, but yeah. If you want to animate the BG, which is the last part, oh, and we have 10 minutes. That's perfect. That's what I calculated. If you want to animate the background, you need to do it in full 3D. This is just for a quick reference and to make it easy for people who hate 3D or like are not used to it. But instead, if I had the whole CD imported in my scene, import 3D models. I'm just going to get the street and not convert it to 2D. It's coming. I hear my computer screaming at the moment. You can do it. Yeah, okay, good. Note, though, that if you're using models of such scale, you need a good machine for it. Like I have a 3D computer, so it's fine, but the imported 2D is also important because if you have a computer that is less strong, you importing to 2D is lighter because it's an image instead of the whole 3D model. So like when I'm on my little laptop, I usually use convert to 2D, but when I'm on my tower PC, I don't mind handling 3D backgrounds because that's what it's made for. And then you just give it a 3D peg. And you can just move your background. I like to activate my mask here because it's a bit easier to see. And then you can just put your background in it. It's fun to have your 3D top view like that because it helps. And if you want to do something crazy like Inception style, and you want to have your 3D model move around like that, you can. Just gonna put a keyframe here and put a keyframe here. It's really just animating cutouts. Just put keyframes and you animate the things. Whoa. That's gonna be crazy, okay? And yeah, so yo, and that's the 3D. So you can animate your background itself, which is a bit more rare. Usually we keep the background in place and we just animate the camera moving within it with a 3D peg. That's usually the case. It's like we rarely move the 3D. We usually move just the camera and we have it go through the background, and then you can maintain size your animation on front of your camera to have it go inside camera. Okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm doing something. And then you could have on another layer, your character could be like running to do some parkour because parkour is really cool. I don't want to get my guides. I don't care about my guides. I don't want guides. And then you could have your character kind of running. But oh yeah, you need to maintain size first. Maintain size. Where's my top view? Top view. Gonna maintain size that in front of my camera. Yay! And then you can just animate your character running around the city and have a fun time doing that. Last thing I want to show you before we leave. These things go by so fast. This is so sad. Is that I have my 3D background, and if I want to move one element, like if I don't like where this thing is, you can also take that thing and move it. So for now, all I can do is move my whole background. But if I use a node called Subnode Animation, this one, and I just go and snug it between the background and the composite, and usually we'll give a composite to this own background so that it can do its own things in the corner like that. And if I give it a subnode animation node, of course you don't do that for a big city like that. Usually you do it like for the little cart I had or a little sword or something. But it will give you like if you're familiar with Maya, it's going to give you an outliner thing. 3D graph. right? Yeah, so it's gonna give you like an outliner with all the pieces of your background. So if you want to move this thing, you just click on it and it's gonna say like, hey, this is a sidewalk sign 1 key. And if you go to your timeline, it's gonna show you the subnode animation here. And if you want to put keyframes on it, you can put a keyframe on on that thing here. So I have my sidewalk sign key here. If I wanted to spin around, I can make it spin around. It's gonna be gorgeous. Look at that, guys. Whoopaka! Wait, I'm gonna remove my camera movement, and you see it's spinning in, almost spinning in place. Oops, I removed my keyframe. No. So yeah, it's gonna spin around for absolutely no reason. It's a magic sign. Whoa! So yeah, so that's how you animate stuff. But this is a bit more in depth, and if you're not familiar with 3D, it might not be your jam. But just to finish this, does anyone else have other questions? We can go overboard for some 2 or 3 minutes, so don't hesitate. I'm gonna go get my card just to show you this in a more practical way. Come on. I'm gonna take my card. I'm gonna give it a subnode animation as well. Here, and when you have the subnode, that's when you have access to this outliner thingy. So if I want to, let me just position this. Enable 3D. Whoopaka, like this. I'm gonna make it bigger so everyone can see. And let's say your character, or let's say like you want this to sway in the wind a little bit, like this part. Then instead of importing 5 different models, you can just use this model, but have the subnode animation in. And I'm gonna click on get my transform tool, click on this thing. So you get your transform tool, you click on the model, then you click on the piece you want to move, and you just put a keyframe on it. And then in your subnode animation, in your timeline, you go here, you're gonna see the lantern one thingy. And then you can have it sway in the wind like that if I want to have it move like that. I'm exaggerating it so that you can actually see it on the smaller screen. But yeah, so you could do that. You can also like animate this box moving. So it's going to be a magic thing. It's flying off, guys. And I mean, 0 gravity, right? So it's just flying off to space in a direction that is out of control, guys. Bye. So yeah, I hope that this was useful and that I didn't break all of your brains too much and that you're gonna have fun. All right, so last 1 minute or 2 of questions. And after that, I guess we'll be on our way. So is everybody all right? Let me just go up there. Oh, and by the way, Mick wheel, a peg is basically just something that allows you to move pieces around. So that just to show you, if I remove the peg, my 3D model would go back in place. So the peg is really just a movement like that. Okay. So yeah, I hope you had fun and that this is gonna give you so many cool ideas. Because when I don't know what to draw and I don't have inspiration, tracing over a 3D animation is really fun. So I hope you have a great old time, and I'll see you again someday soon. So yeah, bye bye.